Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh had their end-of-season press conference on Thursday, and they were dropping some major hints at who their next offensive coordinator could be.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, man? Welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, we got to hear from the head guys in charge, Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh, and we got some great insight on what went into the decision of moving on from Greg Roman, what they want from their next offensive coordinator, and also the fact that they definitely do not want to worry Justin Herbert on the process. They want to take care of it. They want to have full autonomy on that decision. And of course, Jesse Minter has had many head coaching interviews already. Seems very likely that he's going to be gone, so we can talk about that and also what they had to say about the next defensive coordinator potentially for the Chargers.
Yeah, and they said basically it's when and not if. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Dave, the Chargers sprung a big-time press conference on us on Thursday, and I'm sorry to the fans. Every time we put out a fan post, it seems like big news comes up that we need to get into. But I did think it was very interesting the way that they put their offensive coordinator search, or exactly kind of what they were looking for. Because I think you kind of assume with a Jim Harbaugh team, you're going to get a certain thing. But what they did tell us, first of all, was that they're looking for a head coach of the offense. And I think that is something that's interesting, because what does that say about who they're willing to hire, right? Like, a head coach of the offense seems very specific. Are you looking for a head coach or a former head coach? Because we know there's several of those available. Also said they're kind of looking for a proven track record from whoever the next offensive coordinator is. Who does that eliminate? But I do think if you watch closely at this press conference, you could tell, hey, there is, they're open to a lot of things, but there are a specific kind of set of skills that they're looking for in whoever the next guy is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, and for any prospective offensive coordinator, they can know that Jim Harbaugh is a CEO type head coach. He doesn't have a specialization in offense, defense, or special teams. He's an overseer of the entire operation. So on the offensive side, he wants somebody that's going to have full control and have the ability to be able to articulate what type of offense he's going to be able to run and be able to teach it. That's part of the quote is that person that teaches, installs, and puts the players in the best position to be successful and ultimately score points, number one. So I like that insight from Coach Harbaugh, saying kind of, hey, like, these are some of the characteristics, some of the things that we're looking for in the type of head coach that we want. And it definitely does feel like experience is one of those things that they definitely want to center the search for the next offensive coordinator around.
Yeah, and it just makes you wonder if, and it seems to me like they have guys like a, Mike McDaniel near the top of their list, like a Brian Daboll near the top of their list, maybe Kevin Stefanski, obviously, if he doesn't get a head coaching job. Even, Cliff Kingsbury, depending on how far away from kind of the Jim Harbaugh roots they want to get. But this is from Daniel Popper, who had the transcription. We're going to look for the best one that has a track record, has a proven success, and can show the vision for what our offense is going to look like. And that's what it should be, right? Like, every person should be sitting down there and showing exactly what their vision for Justin Herbert and this team can be, and why they think they can get them over the hump, most importantly, where they went wrong, and also how they can fix it. I mean, that has to be number one. But like I said, it does seem like Jim Harbaugh would be kind of stuck to a certain type of guy because of the Jim Harbaugh brand of football, something that's part of the Chargers culture, and you would think have to kind of vibe well with whoever the next head coach is going to be. But a lot of these kind of spread it out, run and gun kind of offenses you wouldn't necessarily think would be something he would be into. But when he was asked if the next offensive coordinator would have to kind of be similar offensively to what they've been doing, it was interesting because first he said that the foundation was built, Jim Harbaugh did, And that it was a good one, making it seem almost like they wanted to build on what they had with Greg Roman and just kind of improve that and grow it, not necessarily change it. Way later, it was Matt Money Smith that had asked him originally. He went back to Matt Money Smith and wanted to kind of clarify it. And I think that's kind of where we got the real answer, or at least the real perception that they want out there to these offensive coordinators or prospective offensive coordinators. When he circled back to it, he said, "We are open. Get the best possible person for the job. There's many different ways to skin a cat." And I did think that that is what you're hoping to hear. Like, yes, every person is going to say, yeah, we want to be physical. We want to run the ball. We want to, be smart and all of these things, which Jim Harbaugh said, plays tough, plays physical, very sound, puts playmakers in a position to make plays. All of that stuff everyone's going to say, right? But it did show me that they are telling and putting it out there and broadcasting to a certain extent, David, hey, if you think you might not be a fit for what Jim Harbaugh wants to do offensively, don't worry about that too much, because he's willing to kind of change his ways in an effort to try to take this team to the next level.
Yeah, like as opposed to what the popular belief probably was, like we're not trying to stick a round peg, into a square hole. We're more of looking for what the right puzzle piece is to fix our offense and to be able to set up our offense and orchestrate our offense to the best of our ability, given the pieces that we have in place, the quarterback that we have. We just want to be able to play winning offense, whatever that looks like. If you're able to come in and articulate exactly how you're going to use Justin Herbert, how you're going to use the weapons at his disposal to get the absolute most out of this offense, score the most points, win the most games, and be able to do that in the most critical moments in the playoffs, like those are all things that the Chargers organization are looking for out of their next offensive coordinator. Not necessarily a particular set of schemes or skills, just somebody who can come in and be effective.
And we know what we want, right? It's someone that will build it around Justin Herbert to make things a little bit easier on him and doesn't rely so much on him being able to shake off, two people about to sack him to make a big play if they're going to do it. But I do think that, yes, this is casting a wide net. Now, metaphorically speaking, felt like they did not cast a wide net when you bring in someone like Greg Roman, right? Because it's like that was something you were afraid of, or we were afraid of, because the ties were already there. But it's hard for me to believe that they sat everyone down and did this full thing and said, who would be the best offensive mind here? Greg Roman. No, it didn't feel like that. This feels like them trying to change their ways in that aspect, and they absolutely should be, because as Joe Ortiz said in the press conference, like, you learn about these guys and what they, want to do, but you also have them kind of telling you the flaws that you have on your own team and seeing it from their perspective. But I do think another kind of thing to be kind of broadcast out there is them basically saying that the new offensive coordinator would have a lot of say in the coaching staff. And I think that is key, because I think if you want some of these top options, you're going to want those guys to be able to pick out their staff. So they did say nobody is going to be fired, more than the guys that they've already had fired with Mike Devlin and Greg Roman. But I think that still all could change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you want to open your job up to people and say, oh, by the way, you need to get the people that we want.
Right.
Not the people that you need to be able to orchestrate and run the offense that you are trying to bring in. But I think that's the right way to go about it, right? I mean, because right now, what Jim Harbaugh was doing in this press conference is speaking to every potential offensive coordinator candidate that's out there saying, hey, we don't care about what your scheme is as long as it's effective. And yes, we will allow you to bring in the people that you need to be able to run your offense the most effectively. And that's the right call. That's the right way to handle it, because if not, you're going to shy away from being able to attract the most most impactful offensive coaching talent, which is also very important. It's not just about the player talent, it's the coaching talent that's important as well.
Well, I think most importantly, it could be the difference between them signing with another team or them signing with you, which
Absolutely.
I think is that, if you're not willing to let them kind of staff it themselves and have guys who are, can build it the way they want it built, then yeah, they could leave for greener pastures. And there is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job out there, offensive coordinator wise. There is, other teams like the Lions and the Eagles who have attractive situations as well. So that's who you're competing against. But he did basically say, this is what he said word for word. They would have a tremendous amount of input, quote unquote, on the new offensive line coach he was asked specifically about. And then he was asked, would they be able to pick different, position coaches as well? If he feels like he needs somebody to run his particular system, yes, he would have input on that, a great amount. said the organization would have a final say. But I think those are all things that get worked out, during these negotiations. But yeah, I do think you want this new coach to be able to pick their offensive line coach. But do you want your $250 million quarterback to have an input on it? Because so far he hasn't. So we're going to be getting into that and much more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Hey guys, the draft picks positions are set and so many teams are looking for their franchise quarterback. Ever wish to become a pro QB getting drafted first overall by the Chargers? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number one draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number one QB career mode game on the mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. And you also get to play the actual games in 2D and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. And Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for you want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. Just head to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special for you guys. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, football legend, QB1, it's your legacy. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. It's easy to see why. I know I am a novice cook, but I've been able to cook very easily what I've gotten from Home Chef. And a lot of it is like not having to pick out what you're going to eat. Like you have options, but you have really good things to plan your week out for. So you're not like, man, what are we going to have tonight? Do we have all the right ingredients for that? Do we have what it takes to make this? You don't have to worry about that with Home Chef. It saves time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries, which are incredibly expensive. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive that free dessert. David, we have more to get into here because I thought one of the more telling things that we heard from this press conference was, first of all, Jim Harbaugh hasn't talked to Justin Herbert since right after the game. You would think with like the exit interviews and stuff like that, I mean, maybe Justin Herbert just wanted to get out of town immediately. And after the way things ended, I wouldn't blame him if he's on the first flight back to Oregon trying to put football behind him for a little while.
Probably going to fish.
Yeah, probably fishing. As you're listening to this, Justin Herbert is probably fishing somewhere. But it was interesting because he was asked specifically, Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz were asked if Justin Herbert had any impact so far on the Chargers offensive coordinator search. And maybe not surprisingly, they said that he hadn't. And I know I've seen a lot of reactions to this, David. What was yours when you found out that Justin Herbert isn't a part of this process and may not be?
I don't like it. I really don't. And if it's Justin's personal preference to not be involved in that, then fine. So be it. That's him.
And that's how they made it seem.
Would that be surprising, knowing what we know about Justin and his personality? Not at all. He doesn't. He's a football player. He doesn't care about if football was played with just people in person and there weren't any cameras, I think that's probably what Justin would prefer. Just go out there and play the game. So it's not surprising to me to hear that he's not involved in it, but I feel like he should be involved in it. Like you're the face of the franchise. Like you need to embrace that role. You need to be able to say, hey, like these are the things that I'm looking for. These are the things that I do well that I want to make sure is involved. And I want to make sure that I have some philosophical alignment with who's going to be running the offense, especially because I'm the most important part of the offense. Right. So I just feel like I would like to have him be able to be involved, vocalize his opinions, be able to have his input be, respected, shared, and, be involved in the process. But that just doesn't seem like that's the case.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I don't know how common it is around the league for a quarterback to have, how much say they normally have in something like this. I would say, like, at the very least, you should be trying to figure out, what Justin Herbert thinks went wrong, why he thinks things weren't working. And maybe that's not his kind of first inclination of something to do, because he does seem like a kind of go with the flow guy, even though I wish he'd be a little bit more assertive at times.
Yeah.
And it seems like he doesn't necessarily want to be part of this. And I don't think that's his job, to be honest with you. And I don't even know if it's a huge deal, just because it's like, I don't know if I want, like, I obviously wasn't picked with Greg Roman based on a friendship contest, right? Like, I'll throw that out there. But I think it's more about finding someone who's going to be able to challenge him and make him better, right? And have him more prepared for these big games, and to be able to keep him in the right headspace. Like, he wanted Shane Day, right? Like, as the quarterback coach, someone who's been interviewed for the offensive coordinator job, or was on Thursday morning, on Thursday after Marcus Breda, their passing game coordinator, was doing the in-house stuff first, obviously. But, like, this is what they said. He's not looking to be the GM or the coach. It's our responsibility to put him in the best position possible. And it is. Like, they should know exactly, they should be able to have the visions laid out to them by these, offensive coordinators, and figure out which one goes best with Justin Herbert. But I'm not really super concerned about Justin Herbert being buddy-buddy with whoever this next guy is. What bothered me more from the press conference is all the times they kind of brushed off the bad offensive line that they had in 2025, for lack of a more nuanced term. I just kind of wish at some point you just come out and be like, hey, listen, what happened in 2025 was ridiculous and unacceptable from this offensive line, and we are fully focused on giving Justin Herbert the best offensive line in the league, so he's not leading the league in quarterback hits and pressures and all of those bad things that Daniel Popper brought up to them specifically, and they didn't really want to answer. So they did talk a little bit about, Greg Roman looking, fresh start and a new direction. Said the NFL is unforgiving, it's unfair, it's hard. That's the nature of the business. And I don't know if there was too much there. I mean, I think the thing there is just like, obviously they're showing some urgency, but I did think they had some interesting things to say about their cap space, David, because they do have $100 million in cap space plus coming up, with potentially more that they can open up. And it doesn't look like Joe Ortiz is planning on changing the way he's been doing it.
Nah, yeah. Joe Ortiz it definitely feels more like Scrooge McDuck when it comes to spending money and how he likes to disperse his money. And this is basically what he said. He said, I don't want to spend recklessly. If you chase perceived needs in free agency in the draft, you end up more often than not overpaying or making a mistake. So we do have to be calculated. We have to be smart, and we have to put it all in on the player and believe in that player. So we'll spend money, but we're going to spend money internally as well. We have some guys that we'd like to bring back, and that is definitely obviously true. I mean, there's a couple of edge rushers that are going to command a lot of money with K-Mac and obviously Odafe Owe, and even Tuli Tuipulotu is contract eligible or extension eligible now. So there's a lot. They have a lot of cap space, and I mean, I'm not expecting any other type of answer. Just knowing what we know from Joe Ortiz and how he likes to handle things. He had a lot of money last offseason. That didn't change. He didn't go out there and spend it. He got a lot more quantity than quality. Hopefully this year it's quality more so with, intention on improving some obvious deficiencies, especially with the offensive line. Like that has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed emphatically. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. It just has to happen. The last few years, it hasn't been good enough. There hasn't been enough. We can't be going into another season where we're pointing out the biggest flaws on the team and they haven't changed. That just can't happen a third year in a row.
100%. And like this is from Popper. I don't want to spend recklessly. He said, if you chase perceived needs in free agency and you draft, right, like you said, this is the thing, though. It's finding the fine line between being aggressive and being reckless. Like, those are two different things, right? Like, you can be aggressive and not be reckless. At the same time, like, the Chargers cap space is in such a healthy spot compared to some of the years that we've seen, especially under Tom Telesco, where everything's getting kicked down the road, and you're mortgaging the short term for the long term, and he's done an incredible job of that. At the same time, his teams have also had some fatal flaws, right, that were exposed by injuries and major ones during the season. But like the Chargers go into 2026 with $478,000 in dead cap. Like, there could be more with guys they released obviously this year, but like to have only that from years prior and the decisions you made before that, incredible. And also to not have any albatross contracts out there, right? That are, you just know that you're going to be having to live with the next few seasons.
And this was a position when he was negative $50 million, and they're in this position right now, even just after a few short years. Like, that's incredible work.
It is incredible work, right? But like that's why it's like, yes, he's done a great job with that, but also the team hasn't been good enough to go win a Super Bowl, right? Like that's just
they
what it
haven't.
is. So it is finding that fine line, and they do have 3 eligible edge rushers, and he said he was okay with paying all of them, Khalil Mack and Odafe Oweh, right? And also Thule, whose money wouldn't kick in until 2027, anyways. Yeah, I mean, you have to try to bring those guys back, but like that is something important for fans to remember, though, is like they have guys that are going to eat a huge number into that number, right? They can also release guys like Mekhi Becton and Bradley Bozeman and stuff like that, but they also have guys that are going to take big chunks out of what that is there. Now, how much of that will be their first year cap hits? How long are those contracts for? Because we haven't really seen much more than 1 or 2 year deals. I mean, I think Will Dissly is the only more than 2 year deal, and then Elijah Molden's extension. But yeah, like it's very rare for them. But obviously, with guys like Tier Tart and Khalil Mack and Odafe Oweh that you have to take care of right now, Zion Johnson, if you want to bring him back, yeah, there's going to be some big numbers taken out of it. And then them kind of leaving some of that space, let them go get Odafe Oweh this year, which Ortiz brought up as well. But we still have more to get into, including both of these guys seeming pretty sure that Jesse Minter will not be the Chargers defensive coordinator in 2026, and they're planning to potentially replace him. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NFL season is in full swing and the playoffs are here now, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. And that's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to fans, because it's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. If you're going to make a big time purchase on tickets that are going to be something that you're going to remember forever, you want to know you're getting the best price. You want to know exactly what your seat view is going to be. And that is something that you get with Game Time. And also all the fees are included, so you're not getting any surprises at checkout. But with the Game Time guarantee, you get that peace of mind knowing that when you make this big purchase, right, or do something important, you're going to get the best out of that. And that's where Game Time comes in. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. I also need to tell you guys about FanDuel, because the wild card round is over now, and we're into the divisional round, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel lets everyone have a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app, which is awesome. I mean, open your profit boost pack the first thing on game day and see what boost you can apply, and the boost give you more juice on the bets you already like, instead of forcing you to bet something new. I know I'm still going to be watching football this weekend. I think it's crazy that the Bills are underdogs, 1.5 point underdogs against the Broncos, who I think are potentially frauds. So that's where I'd be going with on FanDuel this weekend. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. David, we still have more to get into from this big end of season press conference from Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh. And I think one of the big things kind of that was a huge kind of talking point at this press conference was Jesse Minter and the potential for him to be gone. And like, just you could tell by the way both of them were talking, and from what they said, they were expecting Jesse Minter to get one of these head coaching jobs because, in part, he's been requested by every single one of them. All 10 of the openings right now for, 9 if you're once the John Harbaugh thing is officially official, which I thought it was when they asked him about it. I guess it wasn't, at that point, because he wasn't able to comment on it.
Well, I guarantee it's probably just because Penn hasn't been officially put to paper yet, but that's a done deal.
Either way, Jesse Minter, especially with the kind of lack of clear-cut candidates that are better than him, I would say, who is it? You could go with former head coaches like the Dabols or the Mike McDaniels, right? Or Cliff Kingsbury, which probably doesn't have the it doesn't have the same appeal as someone like Jesse Minter, obviously. But yeah, when they talked about it, it was Jim Harbaugh that ended up saying, "We know it's a matter of when, and so we've been preparing for that." That's from Daniel Popper, who transcribed it. But yeah, this was something that they said that, hey, we know it's coming, and we're doing our best to try to prepare for it.
Yeah, no, for real. And the one thing I liked here, at least just to give me a little bit of hope, with Joe Ortiz says that, that's a when, not a if. We'll keep Jesse as long as he wants to be here, but I don't know how long that's going to be. And and Coach Harbaugh even said, like, if there was a way for me to keep him, like I would do that. And that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Obviously, Jesse Minter is a brilliant young coach, a guy who is a true defensive genius that's been able to take it from principle and into practice. It's not just drawing up plays on the chalkboard and being the most intelligent guy in the room. It's being able to show that and then have that proof of concept over multiple seasons, not just one. And I think that's what makes Jesse Minter so appealing as a head coaching candidate is one thing is he's bringing a defensive scheme that is going to work, has proved that it's going to work, and has worked at multiple different spots, whether it's Seattle, who is in the divisional round right now, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's with the Chargers, all similar defensive schemes, all having a lot of success in the NFL. So yeah, the Chargers knew that it's not a matter of if, it's when. Unfortunately, Jesse Minter goes and moves on to that next step in his coaching career, which of course is being the head man of an NFL franchise.
Yeah, I mean, you've listened to him talk, right? Like he's such an even keel guy. You've seen him be able to install it at multiple places already, and I think that the big thing first to go back to your quote, basically what Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz were asked was by Matt Money Smith, hey, if there's a way to give Jesse Minter a gigantic raise to try to get him back if he doesn't end up getting one of the more desirable jobs out there, would you give it to him? And then Joe Ortiz kind of gave a political answer, and then Jim Harbaugh said, yes, we would be able to do that. And then
we would.
You started talking about it a little bit more. But I think it's more about probably more incentive to be pretty aggressive on how quickly you're trying to get these offensive coordinator interviews going, because you can't interview any DCs until Jesse Minter's officially gone, right? Because obviously you want him back. But also, like, do you want to be trying to do those things concurrently, right? Or do you want to just kind of throw everything you have right now into the offensive coordinator search so that way you can solely focus on the best defensive coordinator when that time comes? But at the end of the day, there's a very likely chance the Chargers are going to be going into 2026 with 2 new coordinators, which is really, really tough to do. Obviously, you're hoping to get a huge improvement on one side, but it's hard to imagine, you can just ride in automatically an improvement for a defensive side that's been overachieving for 2 years now under Jesse Minter. But it was interesting that when they were asked if they would try to kind of stay in that Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald family, they weren't necessarily saying they would, right? They said they're open. The players on defense are scheme versatile. We play multiple schemes already. We just want the best candidates. We're all things that Joe Ortiz said. That's from Alex Endorf, the king of quotes at the press conferences for sure. Shout out Alex. But
no doubt,
this is probably the right way to go. But like, I don't know if it's the right way to go. Like, I'm really torn on this one because like what they've been running is working so extremely well. So it's like to me, it's like, man, it feels like you should be trying to get a Steve Klinkscale or someone to stay and try to be the heir apparent to that. But like, it's hard for me to argue that not getting everyone in the building and hearing what everyone has to say is a bad idea either.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just from a fact-finding perspective, trying to get in the mind of some of the up-and-coming brightest coaches in the NFL, that's never a bad idea. It's never a bad situation to be able to gather that and be able to see if it is the right thing or not. But also, it's the same concept on offense. And I'm glad that they're doing it, is they're just saying, hey, I'm not closed to any idea. If I see it to be better than what I have currently, I'm open to that change as long as you can speak to it and be able to implement it. I think that's the right way to be able to look at this.
Yeah, and like I think the thing is too is obviously if you do promote one of those guys, like it makes it more likely you can keep some of the guys that are currently on the staff, because when Jesse Minter does take that job, he's going to be raiding the Chargers cabinets as far as their coaching staff goes. And to me, it basically seems like it's going to come down to this: you're going to lose either a Mike Elston or a Steve Klinkscale, in my opinion. Especially if you don't have one of those guys to be the heir apparent. What is stopping them from going to be the defensive coordinator under Jesse Minter, which is a big promotion for either of them? Now, having the Chargers defensive coordinator job is better than being under Jesse Minter, because if you're under Jesse Minter, he is going to get a lot of the credit for the defense's potential success. At the same time, if Steve Clinkscale gets that, defensive coordinator job for the Chargers, Mike Elston being a defensive line coach doesn't compare to him going and being a defensive coordinator potentially and making coordinator type of money. So feels like it's not just losing Jesse Minter. It's some of these other coaches that we know, like a Mike Elston and like a Steve
that will
Clinkscale,
inevitably leave. Yeah.
that are going to inevitably leave, almost certainly. So that's something else to kind of wrap your brain around. But one last topic here. One thing we did learn was that Navarro Bowman, the Chargers linebacker coach, is going to be stepping down, which if you were cynical, you would think might be because of a potential Jesse Minter departure, but they made it pretty clear that this was more of a family thing and getting to spend more time with his family.
Yeah, he said his son Navarro Jr. is one of the top-ranked high school basketball recruits, and so he wants to be more present in his life. And so, as you know, both of us are both parents. How could we ever, go against wanting to spend more time with your family and be there in some of the most critical moments, right? To where his son could be taking his talents from being one of the top high school players to obviously, hopefully moving on to college and maybe the pro game, right? Navarro Bowman's made a lot of money in his career, both as a player and as a coach. He can do that. The linebacker room for the Chargers has been fantastic. I feel like he's done a great job being able to get the most out of these guys, no matter who it was, no matter if it's the top of the billing or it's the backup guys, no matter who's been on that football field, they have provided adequate play from that linebacker position, and I think that is a direct reflection of Navarro Bowman.
Yeah, it's a big loss because I think you've seen guys like Deion Henley and Troy Dye and even like Deshaun Phillips to a certain extent all play their best ball defensively under Navarro Bowman, and it was one of the huge perks of getting someone like a Jim Harbaugh that he could have that relationship with Navarro Bowman to be able to bring him in like that. But yeah, I think the big thing that's kind of underestimated here is just how much of a full-time job this is and how many hours these coaches are in the building. It's not a glamorous job. It's not a job that keeps work-life balance in check very often. So this is an all-consuming job. I think he realized that over the 2 years and is at a pivotal point in his kid's life where he wants to be home and he knows he can't do that and also give the Chargers everything they need from that position. Now, that being said, I would ask, what is Patrick Willis up to right now?
Yeah,
that would be my next call. Hey, let's
dip back into that bag, Jim.
Yeah. We got one of those linebackers. Let's see what the gold jacket wearing Patrick Willis has going on if he wants to come give his input on what the Chargers need at that position. But a big loss for sure, and one of potentially several on the defensive side of things here. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Again, I just want to apologize because we have put out fan mail posts, buy or sell posts, and just haven't been able to get in them. The plan will be to use those Monday, but like Jesse Minter could get hired over the weekend. We could see the Chargers actually start to interview some of these top offensive coordinator candidates. So we will find a way to mix them in as we can next week. So make sure you're back here for that and some potential dark horse offensive coordinator candidates if it gets to that point, and all of the latest news because we are the only daily Chargers podcast out there. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And if you want an ad-free version of this podcast, you can do that audio-wise with the Everydayer Club. If you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get the ad-free audio plus access to our members-only Discord channel. Something new.
No commercials?
Something, I know, I mean, who can't get behind something like that? I know I'm into it for sure. But trying to build a community in there, and we have, our little Discord chat, which I love being in as well. Only doing more and more with that as the off-season continues and a lot more to put into it. So thank you guys again for checking out today's show. If you guys want to make sure you never miss it, we also post the show every day on our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But we could have a crazy weekend, and we're going to be back here on Monday. I mean, if it's big enough, we'll be back here maybe Sunday night with a live show. But who to come to with all the latest Chargers news because we'll be here 5 days throughout the rest of this offseason and these next pivotal things that we have coming up in it. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.